Okay, Ms. Goodman, let's start with you.
Okay. Senate Bill 362, Primary and Secondary Education, Virtual Education Requirements. In general, Senate Bill 362 alters the requirements for the regulation of virtual schools. The House amendments conform Senate Bill 362 to House Bill 1163 as passed by the Senate. In general, the amendments add authorization for county boards to have virtual education days instead of closing public schools for severe weather, and it provides for the operation of public schools for prolonged states of emergency. The motion is to concur.
It's been moved and seconded. This will conform it to the bill we passed on the floor the other day, Saturday, I think, or Friday. Any objection? Okay. Yeah, it's been moved and seconded to concur. So then the vote would be 3, 5, 6, 7 to 1. 7, 1, 4 absent. 3 absent. Right. 7, 1, 3. Okay, next.
Senate Bill 436, Carroll County Board of Education Member Compensation and Student Representative. You just voted the cross-file this morning, and the bills are identical. The motion is to concur.
It's been moved and seconded. Anybody object?
This is Senate Bill 436, Carroll County Board of Education Member Compensation and Student Representative. The bill strikes the provisions regarding the student representative. It's the cross-file with House Bill 689, which this committee just voted favorable with this morning. Yes.
Anybody object to concurring? 902.
Senate Bill 771, Baltimore City, 46th District Alcoholic Beverages License. In general, this bill alters the hours of sale, the annual license fee, and increases the total square footage of floor space in which certain vendors may sell alcoholic beverages relating to a public market license in Baltimore City. The bill also waives certain distance restrictions for a transfer of a specified license. The House amendments conform Senate Bill 771 to House Bill 115 as passed by the Senate and repeals authorization for the issuance of up to 2 Class B beer, wine, and liquor licenses in a specified location in the 46th District. You should be aware that this was an amendment that was supposed to be on the other bill. The other bill is now all the way through, so it cannot be changed. But the House and the Senate, they both agree that this is the correct posture of the bill, so the motion is to concur.
I'll entertain a motion. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion, debate. Seeing none, anybody object to the concurrence? Seeing none, 359, it'll be 902. We concur. Next.
That is it for me.
All right, so I have one request to recede. The motion is whether to recede, to not recede, or not recede and go to conference. This is on House Bill 1380. The bill title is General Provisions LGBTQ Veterans Honorable Discharge Restoration of Honor Act. So the bill in general defines honorable discharge to include a veteran's discharge that is deemed less than honorable due to an individual's sexual orientation or due to a statement made by the individual about their sexual orientation or gender identity. There were floor amendments that were adopted that under the floor amendments, honorable discharge benefits would not apply to veterans who made prohibited statements about their sexual orientation or gender identity or engaged in prohibited acts. So it striked that latter provision of the bill. And that is before us now, whether to recede, not recede, or not recede and go to conference.
This is the bill, you guys, that after the Huff Amendment passed the Senate unanimously, I've been in touch with the sponsor of the bill. He is expecting a conference. He's okay with part of the Huff Amendment, but not another part of the Huff Amendment. So I think we can work it out in an expeditious manner. So my motion would be not to concur and set up a conference.
It's been moved not to concur. There's a second. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, anybody object to the non-concurrence? We move to not concur. 3-5-10-0-1, not concur. Ms. Foxworth gets your next one. If you have, excuse me, if you have red folders in your desk on the Senate floor, bring them back next session or later tonight. They have to file these and keep track because they are the records. They are the paper of record. So just check your desks. Thank you.
Two that kind of work in tandem. First is Senate Bill 870 and the cross-file House Bill 1276. This is the Baltimore City Youth Data Hub. So for the former Senate bill, we're going to reconsider that motion to concur. So this is actually a pre-concur. The recommendation is to concur.
Reconsider the not concur on the
Right,
Senate bill.
reconsider the not concur that we made earlier this morning. And
And
then
just
on the,
finish.
and then on the House bill, the motion is whether to recede or not recede. And so the recommendation is to not recede and set up a conference committee.
Okay, so we're doing two things. We're pulling back our not concur on the Senate bill because they're amending it. When they send it back to us, we will concur. It'll
Right.
be in the right form.
Right,
But the House bill is not in the right form,
right.
so we will not concur. But we
Not
think
recede, yep.
we will not recede. We think the language is already worked out. But
Right.
we have to go through this dance, bureaucratic, legislative dance.
Through conference,
Right.
yep.
Happens, again, this is I just also want to say that this is a city, a city bill, and, we voted for it, and it's just interesting. I want to say the Senate version was there on March 14th, so I just wanted it on the record, so we will do what we need to do, but this has been in their possession for quite a while. So, thank
So
you.
we do not recede on the House bill. We'll go to conference. We pull back our, what did we do on the Senate bill this morning?
So in the Senate bill, we moved to not concur, but we need
We
to.
will
override
withdraw our not concur on the Senate bill.
Right, and concur.
Okay, any objection to those motions? Okay, it's been moved, it's been seconded. Anybody object to those actions on those two cross-filed bills? Seeing not, excuse me, that's a 10-0-1 vote. Next.
All right, so I have two sunsets. Senate Bill 209, Board of Physical Therapy Examiners. The motion is to concur and not concur. It suggests the House recede or not concur and go to conference. So the House extended the Board of Physical Therapy Examiners to 10 years, overriding the 2-year sunset that we placed. 209.
We spoke this morning. If the bill dies on a sunset, do they in fact get another year or not? Did we check to see what the policy is?
That's unclear. I would have to check.
You generally do sunsets in a year before it actually terminates. So I'm sure they have at least a year's grace period before they actually
So
sunset
we
the
could
whole
always
board.
do an emergency bill next year. And if
But not
it's-
for this one, not for the physical therapists, because they are ending in July of 2022.
Oh, is that the
They're
last year?
They're the exception to the rule. The optometrists and the others, they do have a year left, but the physical therapists are going to expire in July 1. Bill number? Oh. So they'll be an unregulated board.
What is the last action what was the last message from the House?
So from the House, it's extended it to 10 years, and then, so it's on the Senate bill, so they're asking us whether we'll concur or not concur, and whether we'll recede or go to conference.
Well, we can not concur and leave it at that, or we can say we'll go to conference. Look, no, it's your call. I mean, we can say we'll go to conference, and if you want to meet somewhere else other than 2 or 10, we can do that, or we can say take it or leave it. But they might be unregulated for 9 months.
They would be irresponsible of them.
So the move is to not concur. Is there a second? I see Senator Washington shaking her head.
So not
Any-
concur and go to conference, or not concur and suggest that they recede?
Not concur and suggest they recede.
Okay,
Now, what committee is this with? HGO?
yes.
Okay. Okay, any objection to that message? Seeing none, it will be 10-0-1. And you have one more in similar vein?
Yes, yep, so this is Senate Bill 202, this is State Board of Optometrists, the same action was taken, extended to 10 years versus our extension to 2 years. The optometrists, I think, are good for another year, though. They are not expiring until 2023.
So I assume the motion is to not concur and not set up a conference. Any objection to that motion? Seeing none, 10-0-1 on that action by EHE. And members, if you have a question of the procedural stuff, ask it. You know, some of us have been around a little longer, we sort of understand it. If it gets confusing, ask. That's how we learn how to maneuver next year.
Question of council, have we heard back on some of the other professional occupations that we've already not concurred on?
So I think the general consensus is that they're trying to push the 10 years, but, yeah, most of them haven't been read across yet.
They're not getting the message yet, right? So architects and, I mean, some of those are just sitting. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
That's it.
Senate Bill 876, water pollution, civil and administrative penalty surcharge, oyster repletion. This is the bill that requires the Department of the Environment to, as originally it came in, it said attach a surcharge to certain water pollution violations that would be used for oyster repletion purposes. The House amended the bill the same way that the House bill came over, which is to say that the department must prioritize supplemental environmental projects involving oyster repletion for water pollution violations in the proximity of an oyster population, and include oyster repletion projects in the SEP database that they're required to set up under a different bill. These amendments conform the bill to House Bill 1201 as unanimously passed by the Senate, so in order to keep the bills identical, this committee should probably concur.
Discussion. Seeing none, I will assume that is a 10-0-1 affirmation of the concurrence. Okay, so concurrence is not concur, we're done. Okay, let's do 250, HB 250.
House Bill 250, Private Well Safety Act of 2022. This bill establishes the Private Well Safety Program and the Private Well Safety Fund administered by the Department of the Environment to address and manage the contamination of private wells in the state. The purpose of the special fund is to award grants to eligible counties and covered households for costs associated with water quality testing and remediation. Department must adopt regulations to implement the program. The bill also establishes related reporting and outreach requirements, as well as requirements for contracts for the sale of real property. The department must also establish a private well water quality database utilizing an existing online portal to receive water quality tests as specified. I just will flag that this bill, as it came in, or as it is right now, has a very high fiscal note, just because in order to actually set up this special fund in a meaningful way so that it could provide grants would potentially cost millions of dollars. We have not gotten the go-ahead for that from the Budget and Tax Committee. So Chair has walked out of the room, but my understanding is that he wants to offer a conceptual amendment that would strike the portions establishing the special fund and the grant program, so that the remaining provisions in the bill would be the new data portal, as well as water testing as a condition of sale of real property, and requiring state-certified laboratories to handle those tests.
Questions, Senator
Thank you very much,
And
Mr.
then
Chairman.
Senator Riley, followed by Senator Hester.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I believe this is the bill that the realtors said they were fine with, testing at the transaction level.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Fry Hester.
I think it's a really important bill for those of us. Shay's mic there. I think it's a really important bill. And rather than strike the fund, could we not just strike the funding in the fund so that it would be there if the legislature chooses to fund it next year?
So, just, right now, there is no mandatory funding in this bill, so there is no funding, but it does require the department to administer grants. So we'd have to get a little bit creative about, I mean, we could change those, set up the fund and change those shalls to may. That would be an option.
Senator.
Can you just tell me what the grants, who's it going to?
Sure.
I mean, just to understand it.
So the grants could be awarded so in order to be eligible for grant funding under the bill, a county must agree to engage in specified outreach activities that include, among other things, educating county residents about the program and the fund. I think it's essentially it's for water quality testing and remediation of contaminated wells.
So the county would set up a grant program that would go to the homeowners?
Right, so I think the idea of the way this would work is sort of the way our septics grant programs work now, where either a county could either the department could make the grant to the county that would then be administering the grants to the homeowners, or if the county chose not to participate in that process, the department could make the grants directly to homeowners in that non-participating county.
So the assumption is there's contamination in the water. It's not necessarily the homeowner's fault, it's just the water table.
Right.
And so the remediation, I believe, says that they can drill a new well and connect to public water supply.
Or, yeah, you do one or the other, but yes.
Is that just how the language is written? Because it says and.
It's because it's includes, so
Okay.
remediation, it can be any number of those things, but yes.
Okay, so what the chair is suggesting is we take the grant money away, and then the homeowner, what would happen to them under this bill? They would be on tap for the funds to fix?
So it would be the same as it is now, which is that if they wanted to remediate, they would have to do it. I mean, there's nothing I will say just in general, there's nothing in this bill that requires a homeowner to remediate. If their water is contaminated, they can remediate, or they can just be aware of that fact and buy, for example, bottled water for drinking and just use their well water for showering or whatever.
So what is the bill doing then,
So the bill,
as amended?
well, with the.
Potentially
With the chair's potential amendments, it would, first of all, be setting up a database for homeowners that get their private well water tested to submit that information to the department. So we have a better picture of where contamination is in the state. And then it would also require, just at the point where there's a property transfer of a home with a private well, because a lot of people aren't necessarily sort of conscientiously testing their well water. It would just say that when you sell your home, there would have to be a test performed on the well water, just so that the buyer would have that information.
And finally, it sets up a framework for setting up this fund, but it just doesn't fund it.
Well, so that would be the amendment to the amendment, if we go that way.
With the may, yeah.
Yes, we could do that.
Okay, you want to let's move the bill first. Okay, and let's get a second. The amendments, do we want to amend the amendments to make it may, to make it more explicit in terms of the grant?
Second.
Any objection? No? Do we have to say anything else? Or is that it?
No, I'll go through and I'll just make, so the bill, as we're proposing conceptually to amend it, will be to, it will still set up the special fund, but then it will say that essentially that we could say something like, subject to the availability of funding, the department shall do this. That would work.
Okay. And I have talked to the House sponsor, and he's fine with it, or I've texted with him, so. So the bill's amended. As Ms. Morton said, sets up the framework, notification at transfer or sale, and the database operation for contaminated water. As amended. Please.
What's the effective date? Because I don't think there's any requirement to do testing today. And there's a lot of homes that are on wells, so there's gonna be this, everybody's gotta go out and get tested. So when does it take effect? And, I mean, is this a licensed profession that does testing? I mean, what is that?
Well, there's no requirement under the bill that private homeowners test their water unless they're transferring the property.
Unless they're selling, right?
Right, unless
Right.
they're selling.
Which could be substantial.
But also
Cost. It
right
was-
now, the bill as amended by the House, it takes effect October 1st, 2024. So it's a delayed effective date.
Okay, and who performs this? Is it a registered group of people? I mean, who does the water test? Can you get it off the internet and take a test, or, I mean, what qualifies?
I don't remember that.
Senator Hester?
Speak from my personal experience, there's a radon streak that runs through Maryland, which I happen to live right on. So in our homeowners association, like, we've all gone out and gotten these professional, like, tests done. The test is not that expensive. The remediation is pretty expensive. But right now, I have the results of that test, but I don't have anybody to share it with, you know? So this, I think, even if people are self-paying for the test and putting it into this database, it's still incredibly valuable. On the Eastern Shore, you've got other issues, of course, but I think it's really important.
But the contamination is not just for radon. It's, no, I appreciate that. Back to you, Senator.
I'm just trying to think it through.
Please. That's why
So
we're
I
here.
have a house I'm gonna sell. I've never had to test it before. Now I'm testing it, comes back and says, you have this problem, which I didn't know about. Remediation costs with no grants to help me pay for it could be, I don't know, $1,000, $10,000, I don't know how much it is, which could potentially affect even selling the place. And I think that's probably why the grant money was in there, so you didn't put that. So I'm just a little, I think people should know that you have that issue there.
Well, and Senator, I think the bill is silent on what that negotiation looks like. In other words, look,
Bless you.
anytime you have a walkthrough of your own home and you're going to sell it, you can either say, we'll fix it, or we can lower the price, or take it as it is. I mean, many people here have bought or sold more than one home. My sense of this is the purchaser will know, just like if there is
Leaking in
flooding
the basement.
or mold or whatever in your home, and then you negotiate it, or you say thanks but no thanks, or you have enough bidders, you say take it or not.
And just to answer another question that was asked about, so who does this? The bill does say it would have to be a state-approved water sampler, which is currently they have a sampler certification program, MDE does.
Does it have a sunset?
And it is not a Whitman sampler, just so we know. It's a water sampler. Okay, the bill at Senator Carozza.
I pulled the reprint up. Can you tell me where we're amending this?
So,
Senator, we haven't done it. I think it was part conceptual.
It is.
That we are taking the money out and saying that may happen. We don't have the actual amendment, and so it was
So we're taking out the fund itself.
correct.
No, we're
No.
not, as amended. I think what this will actually be is to sort of add into each section that talks about, you know, the department shall establish, just something saying that grant award, or I might even just add a line that says the department, subject to the availability of funding in the private well safety fund, the department shall administer a grant program in accordance with the following sections, and then just keep the rest of the language.
And the grant program, the funds are available to the counties or individual homeowners? I'm still not clear on that.
So again, I believe it is both. So a county is eligible to receive a grant award in accordance with, this is page 6. So they can receive an award to engage in outreach activities. They can also receive an award for distribution to covered households, so that the county would be actually administering the grants to households within their jurisdiction. Or if the county chooses not to sort of act as that intermediary, the department could award grants directly to households.
Directly to households to be used to correct their current system or replace?
Both for water quality testing and for remediation. So testing to find out if they have contaminants, and then if they do, I think it's up to, they cap it, I think it's up to $250 to go towards correcting the issue.
But we're taking out mandated funding. So it's setting up a framework. Okay. The bill with the amendment, the amended amendments. Anybody wish to be recorded in the negative on setting this up? Seeing none, 11-0, that'll pass to the floor as it is. Let's, Ms. Goodman, can we do 19, HB 19?
House Bill 19, Education, School Construction, Pedestrian Safety Plans, Safe Walk to School Act. This bill requires a local school board that is seeking state funds for the construction of a new public school or for the renovation or addition to an existing school under specified circumstances to submit a pedestrian safety plan to the Interagency Commission on School Construction. Pedestrian safety plans must be developed in collaboration with the State Highway Administration and County Departments of Transportation, and the Commission must approve submitted pedestrian safety plans if they comply with the bill's requirements. Only a local school board, not the commission, can determine the contents of a pedestrian safety plan. The bill takes effect on July 1, 2022. There are two suggested amendments. On page 3 of the bill, Senator Kagan has suggested adding where it says analyze an existing potential school zones. Senator Kagan has suggested adding and school bus stops in that analysis. And no, it's not, it's the third reader House Bill 19, on page 3, in line 12. Analyze existing and potential school zones and school bus stop locations. And Senator Pinsky has suggested limiting the bill to the radius around the school where they don't provide bus transportation.
Yeah.
Just explaining my amendment. Some of you may have heard about a 7-year-old boy in Bethesda who was hit while waiting at a bus stop to go to school and killed last week. And so Delegate Solomon is open to, but not, doesn't feel it's uber urgent, but prefers to add school bus stops, just for the clarification that that would be part of the conversation about keeping kids safe. At the same time, if it's the body's if there's a lack of desire to include that, he thinks that that can be done with follow-up conversation and stuff with the stakeholders. So prefers the amendment, but not required. So if we want, yeah. So that's the genesis.
And since we're talking about the amendments, then I'll call on you a second, Senator. I just wanted to make it explicitly, school systems and the IAC should clearly look at walkability when they look at location of schools, or they expand a school. But there's some language that gets beyond that, and I want to make it explicitly clear that the focus should probably be on the non-bus. Each jurisdiction sets a mile, mile and a half, whatever they think is appropriate for walkability. And I was going to put an amendment that just says within whatever that range adopted by the local jurisdiction is. So I was trying to narrow it a little bit. I don't want this to be a major onerous responsibility. So that was my take on this. Senator Hester, you had some questions.
I was just trying, now that I've got page 3 up, where exactly is the Vice Chair's amendment going?
Line 12.
Oh, maybe I've got the wrong version up. Can you just read it to me again?
Would say, analyze existing and potential school zones and school bus stop locations.
Okay, my concern was that there's not always a bus stop, but this is broader, right? So it's, if it's school zone, because you're adding and school bus stops.
Again, this was the sponsor's suggestion as a result of a 7-year-old boy being killed last week, but while waiting at a school bus stop.
I was trying to make sure that if you don't have a school bus stop, which some of us who are more rural don't, that you're not excluded from this.
What would it be called in your area? I mean, students are still standing somewhere where a bus would pick them up, right?
It's
Is
the
that
end of
not
somebody's
a bus stop?
driveway.
But that would still be, is that not called a bus stop? The bus stops and then the students board the bus or disembark.
It's like a parking lot is where you
Exactly.
place cars.
So I think it's still
Yeah.
I think it's a bus
Yeah,
stop.
let me just raise the question. You're building a new school, middle school or high school. Probably far from a lot of people. You're going to have 10, 20, or 30 bus routes, maybe 300 bus stops. I don't know at what point this has to happen. I just think it's a fairly large task when the task in the original bill is thoughtful and reasonable. I just think this gets fairly large. That's my only concern on here. I hadn't heard about the amendment. That was my only concern.
I'm going to suggest that I withdraw the proposed amendment, since the sponsor didn't think that that was required to get it included as a concept. But, and then it can be determined by local superintendents as to whether to include that or not without adding to the burden.
Okay, the bill itself, having IAC and the local school system use walking transportation as another lens when they're making plans. The bill itself, is there a motion in support?
So moved.
It's been moved by the Vice Chair, seconded by Senator Washington. Any objection to the focus being on the area designated by the local jurisdiction? That's for walking for non-bus. Any objection to that? Okay, then that's adopted. The bill as amended is before us. Not a concurrence, it's a straight vote up on the bill. Favorable on the bill as amended. Further discussion? Seeing none, anybody wish to be recorded in the negative? Seeing none, that's 11-0. So I wouldn't be, I don't know. We may be coming back again. Okay, there's food there and, yeah. Hold on. Well, we did 1285. We didn't do, but was 1265 meant to be on the list? No, that was just a clarifier. Okay, okay.